Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Gaming with me, Tony Mo, and we're here today to take a big, long look at the Division's conflict update, better known as Update 1.2. I sat down and played it for quite a few hours today, and it's now been out for about a day, so a lot of people saying a lot of things about it everywhere on the internet. And I want to first start by addressing the issue with bugs that is sadly still prevalent here in 1.2, more so on some platforms than others. And that's all you're going to see people reporting on, which is a little bit sad, which is why we're definitely going to spend a huge chunk of this video talking about the HVT, the changes to the Dark Zone. There's a lot of good stuff in 1.2 that I've actually thoroughly been enjoying, and they finally have put loot drops where they belong. I'm actually doing stuff and earning good loot that is progressing my character, something that we have all wanted in the Division for a very long time, and especially since they claimed to be doing something like that in 1.1 and then it never came through. However, though, the game is still dealing with daily mission bugs, challenge bugs, and in fact, that terrible disappearing character bug that was on the Xbox One for 1.1 is now showing up over on the PC. Ubisoft is currently investigating it, and hopefully it's just a server error like the Xbox One version, and all those people received their characters back. That all kind of sucks, though, especially after Ubisoft went out of their way and Massive to say that they were looking to have a rock-solid launch with 1.2, so they didn't give us an official release date until they felt the game was ready. And then the game goes live, and within a day, in fact, within just a few hours, people are all reporting missing characters, daily bug challenges. I mean, frankly, a lot of those bugs with the daily missions and, you know, the weekly challenges not showing up and loading issues have been plaguing the game since 1.1, and they haven't really gone away. There's been hotfixes to mitigate them, and I have to admit I haven't ran into too many of them, but I also don't play the game as much as I used to, and I have a few people that I know who still play the game extensively. I'm talking about several hours a day throughout the course of the week who have been seeing a lot of these issues. I've talked to some of them for 1.2, and in their first night with 1.2, they saw issues loading into the incursion. They had people getting kicked out of the incursion. You know, everything going on with the servers with the Division is still a bit of a mess, and it's causing a lot of problems for people when they're trying to play 1.2. As I said, this is all really sad because 1.2 has some good stuff hidden underneath all of those little issues. And, of course, that one big issue, people not having their character on the PC. So that's all I can say about it. That really sucks. They need to stop with this. Every time they launch a patch, anything good in that patch or that update gets buried by the bugs that are causing the community so many different issues. It can't keep happening. This can't be the way forward for this game if they want it to grow and to continue to have a community. You know, there's a community still there. People are still playing the Division. There's no doubt about that. When people like to ask that silly question, do people still play this game? Yeah, they do. But, you know, they're getting more and more bitter every time they have to boot up the game to a missing character or a missing character, or a broken mission, or a broken weekly challenge. It just, bugs will exist. There is no doubt about that. But these severe game-breaking ones have to be minimized or eliminated. And you know, the worst part is they show up alongside of these patches, like I said. So that's it. I don't want to talk about it anymore. Let's move forward and actually talk about Update 1.2. Now, we're not going to be talking about the incursion because I simply haven't had the time to get together people to actually take the incursion on. We're going to talk about everything else available in 1.2, though, and I want to start with the high-value target missions, because this was the first thing that I gravitated towards when I booted up 1.2. It was the biggest thing that I was excited for. You guys heard me talk about it when I looked at the trailer for 1.2. I was like, man, those look cool. Hopefully they're as cool as they sound. So I made my way into the base of operations to find two new quest givers, one for daily high-value targets and one for weekly high-value targets. I immediately recognized that I needed something called intel. I was like, okay, I need intel. What's intel? Where do I get intel? Well, as it turns out, in order to acquire intel, you need to first clear out the different districts on the map. This is most likely something you've already done if you are an endgame Division player. What I mean by that is all those safe houses that are connected to a district have side missions and encounters connected to them inside of those districts. Complete all the side missions and encounters in a district, and that safe house's district's safe houses will then unlock search and destroy missions for you. Search and destroy missions have you going on out into the world, eliminating or clearing out areas of enemies in order to gain access to intel. For example, the one you guys are seeing right now was in the Garment District. I secured 3 separate areas, and I received a piece of intel for each area. Now, I was a bit disappointed because I knew that the minimum amount of intel that I needed to do the lowest possible level HVT target for the daily was 5. Well, don't worry, once you finish that, you can head back to the safe house and you'll be rewarded with 2 more pieces of intel. On top of that, I also received a high-end weapon. Nothing amazing, it was like a 163 shotgun or something like that, but nonetheless, a piece of high-end equipment. And it's nice to see them throwing high-end gear at us in the form of actual mission complete objectives. This is nice. Again, we don't want to craft it, and we'll talk a little bit more about the loot and how it has been improved in 1.2. So once I had my 5 pieces of intel, I went back to the base of operations and I grabbed a HVT target mission to take down an HVT from the Rikers known as Starman. Apparently he had been going around and using extortion to harass families who are alive in New York City. That's kind of messed up, but that sounds like a guy from the Rikers. He was clearly actually meant to be in prison. There's no doubt about that. So I navigate my way to the area on the map, end up dealing with a small group of his trash mobs, his cronies that were already there ready to fight me. Once I clear them out, another group comes in with elites, and Starman shows up. Now, despite what any David Bowie fan might tell you, I was able to actually kill Starman, unfortunately for Starman. He died, and he also dropped some awesome loot, which was pretty surprising. I wasn't really... I didn't know what to expect in terms of loot drops for the HVTs. Now, the daily HVTs give you Phoenix credits, but the weekly ones, which require a substantially larger amount of intel, anywhere from 20 to 40 pieces of intel, will also give you access to pieces of gear sets. You're also going to get weapon skins. So I didn't really know whether or not they were going to be throwing decent rewards at us with the actual death of the HVT. I had hoped so, considering they had, made the point 1.1 that all enemies level 30 plus that are elite will drop high-end items, and that was actually the case with this guy. But not only did he drop a high-end shotgun that was pretty reasonable for me, it was a 183 Super 90, he also dropped a piece of high-end gear. I'm sorry, not a piece of high-end gear. He dropped a piece of a gear set. Far more substantial than a piece of high-end gear. It was actually one of the pieces from the Lone Star gear set. It was the Lone Star backpack. Very much a skill power focused roll on this thing, and it had a gear score of 191. So this was the first thing I did. I'm like, well, this is a good start. This is a great start. This is what I've been looking for, some actual equipment earned from killing something out in the world. Like, I did a mission and I was rewarded for it, and I didn't have to spend Phoenix credits on a blueprint to get my satisfaction, my loot satisfaction. So that was a big thumbs up, and I ran a few more of the low-level HVTs, and I was able to get a couple more decent pieces of gear. That was the only gear set piece that I got from the 3 HVTs that I ran, but nonetheless, some awesome loot. I think I got like a 191 submachine gun, if I remember correctly. There was some good stuff in there. I was really taken back by actually being rewarded with decent loot. I know I shouldn't be that surprised, but let's just say I'm happy that they finally pushed in that direction, and that we're in a good place for loot with the Division with 1.2, I feel. Now, in terms of the difficulty of the mission itself, number one, we need to talk about the actual search and destroy missions. They're nothing insanely complex or difficult. Don't expect anything new or exciting. It's standard Division combat fare. If you're bored and tired of the core combat in the Division, 1.2 is probably not going to do much for you. But if you're someone who still enjoys the combat, well, there's more stuff to kill, and then there's more rewards to get once you finish killing all of that stuff. Now, the fight itself to neutralize and eliminate Starman wasn't that difficult, but you have to remember that he was a rank 1 HVT. There are several ranks for the HVTs. The higher the rank, the harder the fight, and potentially better the loot. So I felt that this felt good, considering it was a really low-level, rank 1, level 30 HVT. I wasn't expecting an extremely difficult fight. I had to be a little bit on my toes, dance around a little bit, popped my tactical link, though, and was able to drop him relatively quickly. So I'm excited to see what some of the higher level HVT fights are going to offer. I think these are going to be some reasonably challenging fights. And I think this is a good direction for these high-value target missions. All in all, I really enjoy this. I think it's a great implementation into the game's PvE. It has us going back to a lot of the areas on the map that I didn't think we were ever going to go back to and actually engage, reasonably challenging enemies. It's nice to go back to certain parts of the city and have to, engage in combat there. When you think about it, a lot of the areas in the map, they were kind of one and done. Apart from going to the missions, which are more instanced, or hunting down side missions and encounters, once you clear an area out, that's it. There's no reason to go there. There aren't really any enemies that are matching your level that are difficult. So this is a good opportunity to actually allow us to revisit the city and engage in new encounters within the city. And that is the biggest element of the HVT missions that I enjoy. Now, outside of the incursion, that's pretty much it for updates to the PvE. What we need to talk about next is the stuff going on in the Dark Zone. And there's a lot of exciting stuff in the DZ that I didn't even know was going to happen. Number one, from what I've been able to see, gear drops have been much more well balanced. If you're in the level 32 area of the DZ, killing level 32 enemies, it seems like you're actually going to get some good high-end gear this time around. Now, the biggest thing for me, though, that I had no idea existed until I booted up update 1.2, were what they're calling supply caches, or sealed caches. I shouldn't say supply caches. Those are more like the supply drops. Those still exist, of course. I didn't actually mess around with one of those, so I can't tell you what the loot is like inside of those. But sealed caches are caches that come in a variety of ranks, superior, high-end, also gear set, and they drop off of named enemies in the Dark Zone. Now, as I said, you have different flavors for these caches. You have a high-end cache, you have a gear set cache, you've got a superior and a specialized cache. The thing I like about this is that you're not just getting a cache with a completely random set of equipment or weapons with a random value. You know the value from the get-go. I knew that the sealed cache that I received was high-end and that the items inside would be high-end. The only random element is whether I get a weapon or a piece of gear. I dig that. It makes these a little bit more enjoyable to go back to your stash and actually open up, because that's high end. You don't have to waste your time extracting a superior or a specialized sealed cache, because frankly, who gives a damn about something like that unless you're farming for materials? Which, 1.2 in my opinion gives you a lot more reasons to actually play the game and kill stuff to get loot rather than do it to get Phoenix credits. Now, one of the great things that has come to the Dark Zone is the introduction of stashes at every single DZ checkpoint. So once I got that fabulous sealed cache and extracted it and made my way to the checkpoint, I could open it up right there inside of the checkpoint rather than having to march my way all the way back to the base of operations. This is a huge deal for those of us who really like the DZ. Nobody wants to have to spend a bunch of time in the Dark Zone having a good time with your friends, and then you just kind of have the moment cut in half. It breaks the fun. Everybody's like, okay, I got to go to the base of operations. Yeah, I'll meet you back here in the DZ. I don't know, it's just nice, It's something that a lot of us have wanted for a very long time, and I'm happy to see them finally implement it into the game. You can head right into an extraction point, get your loot, upgrade it, modify it, and then take it right back into the DZ to see how it performs. That is a big plus to me. Now, of course, the big element with these sealed caches is that sort of psychological element behind opening up a gift box and not knowing what's inside. There's no doubt they're using that to their strength here to, persuade players to play the game more and, have more of a reason to go into the Dark Zone. But nonetheless, I appreciate it. It's another opportunity to earn some high-end or gear set or valuable loot for your character. And that, at the end of the day, is what we want more than anything as Division players. Now, the last piece of the Dark Zone that I really want to talk about is that cutting the rope mechanic. We saw this revealed in 1.2. A lot of people having different thoughts and opinions about it. I've had the opportunity to experience it a little bit. So let's talk about what I can actually say from my personal experience. I've got some footage for you guys from one of the early extractions I did. It clearly adds tension to the whole thing. There's no denying that. You've got an additional element of concern regarding the strangers and the groups of randoms that are going to come to this extraction point. Previously, the biggest thing was, okay, we called in the helicopter, let's hold off anyone who shows up and then put our stuff on the chain and then, on the rope and get ready for extraction. Once it's on the rope, that's it. You can leave. You have no reason to stay there. No one could take your stuff previously. You don't need to deal with the NPCs even. There's no reason to stick around. But now, there's that constant concern of, if I walk away from this, all someone has to do is cut that rope, and there goes all of those wonderful sealed caches that I have. I've got 2 gear set sealed caches. I don't want to leave those behind. So you end up staying for, 50% more of the time than you did previously to watch this extraction. To either wait for the rope to fill up and the helicopter to leave, or the time to run out. And all that while, your heart's pumping. Is this guy going to steal it? Is this guy going to cut the rope? What's going on? Not to mention, now that you're actually staying there, you're dealing with multiple waves of enemies. Previously, like I said, you'd leave. The NPCs would just show up and have no one to shoot. It wouldn't make a difference. Now you're there. You're there to stay because you're worried about your loot. And NPCs are roaming on in. You're in firefights with the NPCs. You've got, players showing up. It just makes everything a bit more chaotic. And it definitely intensifies the overall element of extraction. I like that. It felt heart pumping, kind of like it did the first time I extracted anything in the Dark Zone back in the days of the beta. I really dug that. I like what that has to offer. However, I have my concerns still. Even though we have the new DZ bracket, 161 to 200, and then you've got the 201 plus for the people really up there, I'm still just concerned that once things get into serious PvP and we get a lot of those rogue groups running around, camping extractions, that's just going to make things worse for players who are looking for fair fights and are, being met with overpowered SMGs and M18s. I just don't know that the gear score is enough, but I can't really comment on that because I haven't participated in any PvP surrounding extraction points, for that matter, any large amounts of PvP in the Dark Zone yet. I'm hoping to do that during the course of this week. I think I'll even be cutting the rope myself to see how it all goes down, and I will bring you guys a separate video regarding my thoughts on the cutting the rope mechanic and the current balance in the DZ with that new bracket. I think that is definitely worth its own video, and I'm sure that after I played the Dark Zone throughout the course of the week, I'm going to have a hell of a lot of things to say about that regarding its state and, of course, where I would hope it goes in the future, or whether or not it's in a good state with the update that has happened here in 1.2. That's really it for me, guys, regarding update 1.2. Hopefully this is giving you all the bits and pieces of information that you've been wondering about, at least from the perspective of moi. What I would very much love to hear is what you guys have to say. Those of you who are Division players out and about in the DZ, messing around with the high-value target missions, what do you think of it all? Has it overall been a satisfying experience? Have you had any amazing or frustrating PvP encounters due to the new score bracket? And have you or anyone you know cut the rope yet? Let me know your thoughts. I very much want to hear them down in the comment section below. Like I said, guys, overall, 1.2 is a great free update to the Division. It's just sad that it's being really overshadowed by the bugs that have come along with it. Thank you guys very much for watching. Stay safe out there, agents, and I will see you in the next one.